Okay.
No, I'm good. Yeah, no, I did my undergrad in UMass, and then I got a job actually at Clifton School.
You didn't start it yourself. You did it. You know.
You weren't like. Yeah, I actually worked in Angela, shared lab, but I worked with Angela in my summer. With her and Rich Farrell. I don't know. A few other people shared. Gas lab.
And sometimes
That was in, so I did a lot of the gas lab.
they just run them, but.
They didn't probably have some respond.
I'll just start.
Yeah, start talking.
Gauge and stuff like that.
All right, can everybody?
I clicked on, but then
Yeah, fine.
like there goes.
Anybody hear me online?
Still good this way.
Anyone else?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you, Asim. All right, well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the annual meeting of the Pedology Committee. I'm Angela Bedard-Hahn. I'm co-chair of the Pedology Committee, along with Dan Surratt, who's getting ready for his agenda item later. And we are, of course, our triumvirate of leadership, I guess, is Brandon Town, who's the secretary of the Pedology Committee. If anyone's wanting to join the executive of the Pedology Committee, it seems like, I think more or less, we have no bylaws. You wait until one of us retires or dies. Or you stage a coup, I guess you could do that.
Please.
Yeah. We're accepting applications for a coup. So thank you for being here and looking forward to a good conversation today. Thank you for choosing us over soil health, although I recognize not that you are opposed to soil health. You just could only be in one
Yes,
side.
I don't know.
Are we able to mute the person?
Jim, mute yourself.
Yes.
All right. So we have a very full agenda and we're going to have a hard stop at like 5 to 1 at the latest, because we'll have to scurry off to our 1 o'clock sessions, or at least a couple of us do. And so with that, then Brendan will maybe start a sheet of paper going around with to take attendance, rather than go around and have everybody introduce themselves. And so while he gets organized for that, I'll just remind everybody, the Pedology Committee has its inceptions going back to 2003, 2004, probably, at the Halifax CSSS meetings. And so it was started by Dan Pennick and Scott Smith. And really just to make sure that there was some venue within the CSSS for us to continue to have important conversations about things like the Canadian system of soil classification, soil information management. And in recent years, we've seen a lot of growth and interest in these areas. Certainly, we're starting to move on from a stage where we would see 1 or 2 people show up at sessions on those things to actually, we had a very full session this morning on DSM and soil information management. Lots of folks in the room, lots of great questions. And at the same time, really good work happening with respect to working towards the next edition of the Canadian system of soil classification, which Dan will update us on momentarily. And so with that, I am going to get out of the way and turn it over to Brandon to talk about digital soil mapping updates.
I will be quick.
Yeah.
So yes, I'm the co-chair of the Canadian Digital Soil Mapping Working Group with Angela. Just some general updates. There's going to be a new initiative to develop a national soil data library that's going to be led largely out of this community of folks. And one of the things that we're going to be trying to do is talking to our colleagues from across the country to develop a database. And along with that, we're also going to be looking at ways to source new data sets that have yet to be explored. In addition to that national soil data inventory, one of the key elements is going to be building a national soil microscopic library. And really, this is one of the most important things in my mind as a soil surveyor or soil mapper, is because we need to find ways to reduce the cost of soil analysis. And I think that this is going to be the big ticket towards helping us get to cost-effective soil surveying in the future. So over the next couple of months, I will be contacting folks from the Pedology Committee, but also the soil science community at large, to talk about, this national soil data inventory, as well as this soil spectral library. So stay tuned for that. Okay, Dan.
Hi, Garrett.
Wow, that was efficient. Here, we're good. We did lose, but one after, so. All right. I wanted to give an update on the Canadian system of soil classification. So we've been, as you know, working on the 4th edition. Went through a series of meetings where we reviewed the proposals for the 4th edition, and then after that, we kind of lost a little bit of steam. I'll just take the blame for the steam loss. Essentially, there was some feedback, right? We did meetings, everybody gave their presentations on what it was that they wanted to see related to the publications and the special edition that we had published. And then the thought was, let's take that feedback, see if we can make some adjustments, and then we'll come back as a group and we'll revisit, and then we're going to put those into the 4th edition. I've been delinquent in setting up those meetings for very good reasons. One being that, unfortunately, this is a side of the desk operation. This is not my job. And so I do as much as I can, but I do want to show you this. So one of the things we did do this year, despite the fact we maybe weren't working on those technical changes to the document, is that we were gearing up to have the Canadian system of soil classification available online through Pressbooks. All right. So this was mostly, so Brandon was able to get some funding for us last year to do, to pay somebody to come and put the content online in Pressbooks, format it, which I've now learned is not very fun. And we also had some money to do some artwork updates to the artwork that's in the 3rd edition. And this is all building because the reality is the 3rd edition is really going to be the building block for the 4th edition. It's going to be the 3rd edition plus some tweaks and some new additions. And so we figured, let's get this going. So I just wanted to show you this. We haven't flipped this live to public yet, I don't think. Oh, and I should acknowledge the people that did all the work for this, because it certainly wasn't me. So Raphael Duragon, he's Laval University, he's there. He's calling in from Australia today, that's dedication. And Louis Fossack, who don't see him in the room, he did a lot of the artwork updates for this. So I just thought I'd show you, this is all up online. We did this through Dalhousie University, and we're still working on some of the final details, but it's mostly done. And so you can see that this will be, we'll flip this to public and we'll make it available soon. All right, but let's go to something more interesting. Yeah, Brandon, can you write the preface for the 4th edition for us?
It's really good.
It's really good. So you can see, I just want to get to one of the further sections in here. So all of the chapters are currently up in their current format. We've made some of the smaller edits, like spelling issues and those kind of things. As I understand it, right now it's an online book version. There are some intricacies in designing the layout for books in Pressbooks like this as an online book, and then trying to convert that to a PDF. It's not very straightforward. So for now, we thought, let's get the online version up and working, and then we'll figure out the next version, which, well, a version that we can share out that people can print. Essentially, if you want a hard copy of it, you should be able to have a hard copy. So pretty much right now, it's the 3rd edition with some minor updates. All right, so we've done some updates in terms of like coloring some of the diagrams and updating them. And I could have shown you some of the other ones, the other diagrams as well before this, but we thought we would introduce some colors. interestingly enough, we had that long series of meetings, like 12 meetings or something like that, to go over the taxonomic changes. And the most heated discussions were about using or not using color in the Canadian System of Soil Classification textbook. So we decided that we would just make an executive decision right now. And if you don't like the color, just print it grayscale and then you'll have one.
Did you use the Munsell colors and figure out the HTML codes?
Yes, I did actually. Why wouldn't I? I mean, come on.
I figured you would.
But I'd say they're a little bit, I will say they're Ontario biased because I used our provincial data sets in Ontario. And yes, and then I did a whole bunch of summaries on the color codes, the Munsell colors, and then we converted those to RGB, probably using like Dylan Baudet's work in the US.
So if someone complains, they have to check their monitor color calibration first
Exactly.
before they complain to you.
Yeah, so you can't hold the chip up to the screen. It might not be accurate, right? So, yes, and so we'll put something, I guess, we haven't really talked about when we would release this, but we'll probably be releasing it imminently, this version. Raphael is also going to be starting work on the French version towards the end of the summer. As I understand it, he's trying to wrap up a PhD or something. So so he's gonna switch, he's gonna try to start working on the French version, and then we'll be able to then, I'm hoping to start the discussion of the technical content later this summer or early fall, and then we'll start rolling those changes into the book as well. But at least now we have the content in this part, which is a pretty big task if you ask Raphael and Louis. This part is done. So this is where we're at with the Canadian System of Soil Classification 4th edition. Questions?
Questions for Dan, either in the room or online? If you're online, you can just unmute yourself. Jump in. Now you can. Or not. Jim, did you have a question?
So the next part, I think, is just, yeah, I'm just gonna hog all the time today. So we did put a call out for imagery or images of soil profiles and soil landscapes, and we have received some submissions. I would say we don't have enough submissions. So the first thing we put, it's all online. So we're trying to build this library, and then we're gonna figure out how we can share that library out so that everybody can use it. But first we thought we should build it. So far we have Dan Pennick's wonderful library that he had put together that Jeremy Kiss kindly provided to us. So we have that out. We've had some individual submissions. We got a nice series of photos from Rongwi in Manitoba from their soil survey work going on out there. But we are looking for more. Oh, there's Rongwi's. So I was just gonna try to show you. Those are my mock-ups. Actually, that's not the mock-ups, that's the part. So we really don't have a lot of submissions so far. We did there's a submission form. This was the mock-up. This is me just putting pretend stuff in there. And in terms of individual photo submissions, we maybe into the form that we released, there's like a Google form that we put out. We've only received a few. I've got yours. Good. The Leptosol, which was the cover of the special edition. There you go. So we'll probably send that link out again. So, and I know I'm waiting to work with individuals who have lots of photos, yes, and figuring out a more easier way to get those things transferred over and then made available. So we're working on this as well. And then what we were doing is we were then also having Louis go through the photos to try to update the pictures that are in the Canadian, the text or the textbook, the CSSC version 3 manual. So we were trying to, those photos are great, but some of them are pretty low resolution and they're pretty grainy. And so we're trying to update a lot of the photos that are in there in terms of, soil profiles and landforms, landscape views, those kind of things. And so as they come in, we're kind of going through them and we're trying to replace some of the old photos with newer photos that are a bit higher resolution. So that's where we're at with the photos. Questions on the photos?
Yes.
Yes.
When we were working on the anthroposols, one of the challenges was getting good information on soils and photos, all that stuff. Because for a lot of the companies, this is proprietary information and we're not really free to release it. How do we get around that problem?
Well, that's a very good question, right? And we've talked about that at length in Ontario as well with trying to collaborate, like even just use analytical labs data to do analysis, not necessarily to share that data out, but to use it for analysis. And we struggle with that as well.
Yeah, I mean, for the purpose of something like this, usually what we find, or what I've found, is that when it is being used primarily for research purposes, you can often come to an agreement. The other piece is if you agree to not release the specific location, right? If the data are presented in generality, as opposed to this data is from this, specific GPS location, that often makes a big difference as well. If you just started going to say this is from, Northern Alberta, then it helps people feel a little bit more protected in that regard. So some of those pieces we're happy to provide some guidance on that, but that definitely makes a huge difference in terms of people's willingness to share. What are we going to use the data for? And if they don't have to share the GPS locations, which they wouldn't need to for something like this, then that often makes a big difference as well, that they can kind of protect the anonymity of the data location.
Yeah, I think if we could get kind of a standard approach out consultants that they could use with their clients, that would simplify things and give the system more confidence.
Brandon, would you mind making a note that we'll just follow up with that in terms of maybe putting together a bit of a template that we could circulate, like a little, I don't know, fact sheet for folks. So if you are talking to a company about their willingness to share those data, here's what the data will and won't be used for, kind of a disclaimer that they know that and we've got the right words. Would that be helpful?
Absolutely.
And that would be really helpful because often they don't want to know just what we're doing with it, but who we're giving it to and what they're doing with it.
Right. Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, and I wonder, Brandon, is that something that's partially tackled in your project? Yeah, so
Willingness to share.
Willingness to
But
share
I think in this case. it's
mechanism.
photographs, is it?
It's photograph, but some metadata to, in some cases, to make it useful, or to make it, to add the relevant details.
Right.
But the specific location is
Right.
not relevant to this task, right? Here's an answer basalt. It doesn't matter necessarily where it's from. It's just that.
Yeah, and I think like in the form right now, in terms of metadata, in terms of location, like you can be as vague as province. Like we don't really need that much information for the soil profile photos. Yeah, like what did I put on mine? Like, I think like a lot of them are like, southeastern Saskatchewan or Peterborough County, Ontario. So the exact location is going to be pretty hard to figure out from this county.
Any other questions for Dan on the image library piece? All right. Thank you, Dan. Richard, over to you. I'll keep you on time.
It's gonna be dense. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. A number of items that I'd like to cover with regard to international perspectives. So the IUSS Division 1 has decided to hold their next meeting. We haven't actually had a meeting since 2013. They'll have their next meeting in conjunction with the Canadian Society of Soil Science, Manitoba Society of Soil Science, and the Global Soil Securities, which is going to happen next July, third week of July of next year. Just to give you a perspective, that's essentially the group that's equivalent to Pedology, Soils and Space and Time. We have 6 commissions and about 8 or 9 working groups. The idea is to bring them together. The theme is going to be primarily on Pedology 2025 and beyond. So we're looking to have some notion of what's going on within each of these subdivisions with respect to the science, the technology, the challenges, the opportunities. The technical sessions are going to be integrated with the general meeting. So yeah, we're looking to the group here to become involved and organize and participate. On the second item, the international soil judging. So Division 1 has created a working group. It's about a year now. The International Soil Judging Contest Working Group. The objective of that is to refine the framework for organizing and carrying out international soil judging contests, and also to help national societies if they're interested in develop to implement that. Locally here, Dan is our tapped lead from the standpoint of trying to evolve this moving forward to the 24th World Congress. So we're looking to also eventually be engaging our community. Perhaps this is something that we can be reflecting on here in Canada, whether we'd like to, I think we've done this once or twice in the past, whether we'd like to try to move toward having a regular opportunity to this type of an activity here in Canada as well. Third item there, the World Soil of the Year. So this was something that was just recently established by the IUSS. The first World Soil of the Year prize or recognition went to the Chernozemic soil of the Baltic Steppe in Moldova. The Canadian Society of Soil Science and the Polish Society of Soil Science officially nominated this soil on behalf of the Moldovan Society. They're not members yet, so they weren't able to do it themselves. This soil was actually one that Dukachayev spent time characterizing, and I believe Glinka collected a monolith and displayed it at the First World Congress in Washington. It's actually the only soil as well that's been proposed to the UNESCO for heritage designation. So again, that inaugural World Soil of the Year has been recognized. And the idea is this task force that was set up for this is now going to be converted into a working group to evolve the framework for doing this on an annual basis. And ultimately, the question that's being put out to various countries is whether there's a desire to try to develop this nationally. And I think from the standpoint of Canada, if we're
That's just where those people.
2030 World Congress, whether we might look to try to have a soil recognized as World Soil of the Year in 2030. So that's just throwing that out. Right along. General updates on the World Congress of Soil Science. I think the two big ones are, on one hand, we have a subcommittee established that's being led by David Law for evolving the technical tours. And we just had a session before lunch here on contributions from across Canada on ideas about soil tours. And anyone who's interested in being part of that ongoing conversation, David's the person you should be linking into. And again, with regard to the soil judging contest, Dan is the go-to person here, and he will eventually, I suppose, he's got time on his hands, trying to evolve that. I think the final item there is a certified professional soil scientist. So some of you may be aware of this. This is a certification that's offered through the Tri-Societies, just as the certified crop advisors certainly is more well-known and exists in many more countries. Certified professional soil scientist has been around in the US for quite some time, and Australia just recently adopted it. During the centennial meeting a couple of weeks ago, there was a special session to discuss this. We're going to be establishing within the IUSS a working group that's going to be looking at this question internationally, whether this program that the US has can somehow be evolved to provide a framework for providing internationally recognized certification of soil scientists. And at the same time, some of you may remember the special session we had last year. Don Gibbous, who's in charge of certifications for the Tri-Societies, talked about the Certified Professional Soil Science Program, and we've been having some conversations. She was hoping to be here for this and present, but she had complications, so she couldn't come. But we've been exploring what that potentially might look like to be able to open it up to Canadians to obtain this certification. And then it's not regulatory, it's a certification, so it doesn't fit into spaces such as the Institutes of Agrology or professional geoscientists. That's not the space that would be. What would be required to provide this more effectively in Canada, just as they've done with the Certified Crop Advisor Program. It's not one size fits all. Like there's 3 or 4 nodes across Canada that has its uniqueness, and so the expectations for certification and the nature of the exam is slightly different in each of those regions. The idea is that there would be need to reflect upon what is the exact nature of the competency, the skills, the knowledge that would be required for certification within the Canadian context. And there might be the need then to have a group of individuals that would provide guidance on what that would look like. A big one would be the classification system, right? Expect that a person who considered a certified professional soil scientist within Canadian context would understand the Canadian system of soil classification. So I think that covers what I wanted to mention.
Okay, any questions for Richard before he sits down? Either in the room or online? Yes, Dan?
What's the mechanism for this certification to happen? I know Don's not here, but
So.
how do we engage with them? Yeah, to bring it here. How do we engage with them?
This,
If it's a decision to bring it here, and how do we make that decision?
so the simplest, but anybody at this point can simply contact Don and say, I'd like to go through the process. Pay the fee, and do the annual hours and so forth. And again, anyone can do it at this moment. It's available.
But they would need to be
But
familiar with the
bring
American
it
system at
into
this point, right?
more relevance and accessibility for the Canadian context, we would have to sort of start having a conversation of what will the competencies look like for Canada.
So when you said the Australians have done this now?
They have actually done that, and Australia, the Australian Society is actually administering the program there. A certain portion of it is dealt with in the tri-societies, but the rest of the ongoing, make sure that they got the hours and so forth, that's all being administered by Australia. It's not necessary. The key fundamental difference would be the nature exam for a particular region.
So we're allowed to tweak the exam for our
Yes.
geography.
Yeah, that's, there's going to be a group meeting in the next triple SA meeting in San Antonio. Which Don has already booked space for that. To participate in that as well, find out where. Certainly it's not required of anybody, it's just an option, and if it falls into having international recognition, then it provides that extra degree of certification that one can move between jurisdictions and be recognized for the competency.
I just wanted to maybe mention briefly before I open it up for questions from the floor. The original co-chairs of this committee are both online. And you guys, I know you can't see in the room, but there's 30 people in the room, 30, not 13. There's 30 people in the room. So I thought you should know, Dan and Scott, that there's your idea has grown over time. So any items arising that folks or questions, because I know we kind of plowed through that because we were so worried we were going to run out of time. But we do have a few minutes. If there was either items that folks want to raise to the attention of the group here, there's 16 online, another 30 here in the room. Or if you had further questions for either Brandon or Dan or for Richard about anything that they raised earlier. If not, I might ask Brandon if he wants to talk at all further about the project that was just funded, or if you're not allowed to talk about it. Oh, we're embargoed. Never mind. You're not allowed to talk about it.
It's not happening.
That's not really. But it's cool. Oh, there you are. Over to you. Constantine, you can unmute and turn your camera on. There you are.
Hello.
Hello.
This is about photo library, and particularly I know that Alberta Soil Tour would have a good library of photos that are officially publicly available. They are on website now, and we can send more high resolution images if that requested, if there is a form. So we should cooperate on that.
Yes, please.
Great. So Constantine, on the websites, do you want to just make sure that Dan has that website where the photos are held?
Yeah, I'll send you the link, Constantine, and if you have lots of photos, we can talk about a different way of doing it, so you don't have to put the photos in individually.
Do you need more, like, yeah, send me the form, but do you need just photo or you need profile description with chemistry and so on?
Right now, we've just been doing the profile photos.
Okay,
And you can, if you're really diligent and you want to, you can send just a photo and then an annotated photo if you want more work.
yeah, well.
Or you can
photo
also,
and-
yeah, or we can maybe try to
Presentation parent
annotate them.
material.
Yes, yeah, there's some metadata that goes with it to ask about the soil type, and you can provide extra details if you want as well there. Yeah.
Yeah, there is also a collection of photos held by University of Saskatchewan, right? And
Yeah,
few
so-
other soil tours also have photos, at least in historical. So
Yeah.
that could be used. I believe those tours are public by nature of it.
Great, thank Constantine. Any other questions or? Yes,
About the photo library, is it for the classification or like it's a general resource that you're looking to
I think
build?
it's meant to be a general resource,
So
but it's also meant to feed into the taxonomy, yes.
So we're tackling some of that on the ecology side in BC, like thinking about a photo library for ecology, and some of the things are just structuring the database so that they're queryable. Trying to come up with some categories of image sharing that people can sign a waiver for at different levels. So I'm willing to share the photo and it can be published without the location, or I'm happy with it being under an open license with the location and all information, but just kind of having 3 buckets, sharing a little bit, sharing a medium amount, sharing it all, so that when you get the photos, you know which photos you can use at what level, and you have a document of it, so you have somewhere to go back to, not just the handshake conversation the person getting the photo had. So just building some of those structures, and I'm happy to chat more about that if you want to chat. And I also have sitting on a bunch of photos in the PRSSS field tours. I have a bunch there.
Okay.
anything else that folks wanted to add?
Congratulations on the 4th edition upcoming. I think that's amazing. I don't know if we've really acknowledged
We're
that.
almost there.
Well, even that
The loose-
needs to be acknowledged.
The original loose target was 2025, and I think
Yeah.
2025, so we'll be good.
Right on, yeah.
All right. Well, if there are no other questions, we'll leave everybody a chance to actually go to the bathroom before the next session starts. So it's a win all the way around. You're welcome. And thank you all for coming out today. We look forward to progress on the 4th edition and to seeing you all again next year.
So what's going on?
Yeah, it's cool.
Is this somebody's pen? No. Oh, mine. I did drop my white pen, but not that one.